Hey, so I don't know, something's tweaked with Firefox or YouTube, and every time I try to make a video, it crashes. So I'm just going to use the old flip and hope everything's cool with that. I wanted to talk tonight about rights and what are rights, and perhaps importantly, where our rights are going in the future. So, in an effort to, simplify things, I prefer to boil this issue down to its basic roots. And that's effectively the rights of people versus the rights of things. And so, in an effort to clarify, a thing would be a quid pro quo, or chattel, or property that is owned by a person. So to use an example from the 13th century English history, a peasant's labor was at times owned by the lord of the land. And the lord could by law force the peasant to work to fulfill his obligation of the written law of the land. So obviously the peasant would do what he could to avoid such kinds of labor, but it's the law of the land at the time. And so the peasant's labor was a thing and was to a certain degree owned by the Lord. Again, things versus people. So, later the Black Swan of the Black Death came along and threw a monkey wrench into this whole prevailing system, but that's a matter for another video. So let's talk about this owning of a thing. So let's put it bluntly. Basically, a person at various times in our history is legally classified as a thing and therefore owned by another person, could be owned by another person. So this thing that's owned by another person could in fact be owned by a corporation, because according to the U.S. Supreme Court, a corporation is a person. As long as a person is categorized as a thing, they can be owned by a corporation, as shown by Mitt Romney, who recently ruffled a few feathers and said that corporations are people too. Well, you know what? He was right, at least according to the top court and legal infrastructure of the United States. So history is full of these ownership examples of people owning things and people being things, and it's not rocket science, right? Before 1865 in the American Civil War, African American slaves were owned by Americans who lived primarily south of what used to be the Mason-Dixon line. Actually, some people would probably say the Mason-Dixon line still exists. The Jews of Egypt who followed Moses, the residents of Carthage after their wars with Rome. So this system of property and ownership of things are supported by such heavy hitters as organized religion, aristocracy, the corporation, or if you prefer, the ultra-rich, who are effectively corporations or set up corporations. So actually, on a tangent, the corporation was a creation of the medieval church, but I'm digressing, and perhaps if someone's interested, we can discuss that at another time. So, the rich and powerful want to keep control of the things they own. And if you were rich, wouldn't you want to keep the control of the things that you have too? So these entities, slowly and inevitably through selected application of the law, control things. So by forceful argument and debate in places like the court or the government hall or various places, and over periods of time, the rights of ownership and the definition of things predates upon the rights and independence of the person. So over time, people become classified as things, and as things, they can be owned by other people. And the problem with this system is that it's inherently exclusionary, and thus it's fatally flawed. I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but, this is also often true of the conservative mindset, which is thus effectively prone to epic collapse, as most unchanging human systems are. And, you only need to go through history to see ample examples of that. So basically, the rights of the people are often pushed into smaller and tighter constraining circumstances until such time as a black swan or other unplanned event causes a popular uprising directed at those in the ownership class. So the rights of the people are often quickly taken by right of force or threat of violence. The key point being it's quick. So this upends the long, slow procession of the rights of things over things by people and keeps the two camps in a constant state of rebalancing. Some useful examples of this rebalancing would be no taxation without representation, the French Revolution, Mahatma Gandhi. Indeed, there would be rights of the common people. Where would the rights of the common people be without this occasional violent overthrow? So, in America, we can easily see this when we study the formation of the early strong U.S. central government, or what was classified as federalism, and that's under Washington and Hamilton, and its counterbalancing arguments made by such people as, Thomas Jefferson, who owned things. So, it's a slippery slope. So, this is a fundamental discussion about how a new country should be formed and rights of people versus rights of things. So I'm not going to go into details of the positions in this video, but it bears noting, and it's probably worth your time to spend learning more about it. I know I'm still learning about it, and I'm constantly looking for more sources of information. Knowledge is good, right? So, your rights are defined by the times in which you live. And we live somewhere along this spectrum, which is the long, incremental, ever-increasing definition of the ownership of things, and then its short, violent counter-reaction. This is what makes history amazing. So, if I were to look for a place to start, I'd probably start by taking a look at John Locke. But, for example, you could look at the initial founding of, well, I shouldn't say the initial founding, but a substantial part of the original populace of the state of Australia was debtor's prison being cleaned out. And what's debtor's prison, right? It's people that had a debt and couldn't pay it, and so they're effectively a thing, are they not? Thanks for watching.